So dark in this place. Who the hell is that? Is that 50 Cent?
Here, I'm gonna give you this bag and do it outside because I know it's gonna do a lot of dust. And I don't want the dust getting hot.
Alright. Let me see really quickly.
You know, got the videos of the songs that was the famous one, the one that they think that everybody going nuts, the candle and all that. You haven't seen the videos, that's why. It's like you're just hearing the song. I'm just thinking here.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious as to how Elvis decided what he was going to record. If he had total control over that, over what was going to be on an album, or if he had to answer other people from his record label, or his manager. I wonder how that was done, because I would hope and have to believe Elvis enjoyed and liked every song he recorded. That wasn't a movie soundtrack, of course. Maybe I just need a little more time to sort of switch gears myself in Elvis's next era. That is going to be a lot of music that is more like this, rather than late 50s, early 60s kind of rock and roll stuff. Elvis is growing up, I need to grow up a little bit myself. Let's move on to track 7 from a Jack.
Did you give me my broom before? My broom? This is what I have. You will probably take it apart. Oh no, the big room. That's okay. Go ahead and close that over there. The door. I wanted the big room.
Oh, oh yeah. Yeah.
Rubbed up against you. Hell yeah. Baby, baby, baby. You know, I keep getting distracted. I was gonna give myself a shot. I'm not available every fucking second.
I was gonna go with Stranger in My Own Hometown, but
I wanted to take a fucking shot,
everything
man.
about that song is so good. I cannot wait to listen to that
My
again
blood sugar.
5 more times today.
She needs to
Just what
fucking
I
learn to
needed
do
some
shit on her.
need to pick me up with this album. He gave it to me, and he gave it to me 100%. From a Jack King, perfect. That was the perfect 2.5 minutes. Let's continue this on with track 8. The Bears Moving On. This right here is the lowest paid song on the entire album, with just over 500,000 plays. So, how bad is this?
Step into a serene world with Dazzly Diamond Art by Number. Create a symphony of color and light by filling each Dazzly picture with the perfect gems. Perfect for unwinding. It's more than just coloring by number. It's a relaxing journey through sparkling diamond art. Dazzly's realistic gems shine true to life, just as you see in our ads. Ready for a moment of calm creativity? Download Dazzly now and transform your leisure time into a tranquil retreat.
The sun was out in West Memphis on May the 5th in 1993, and so naturally, kids were playing. Or maybe exploring is a better way to put it. That word would probably ring true in the mind of 8-year-old Michael Moore, who strikes you as the sort of boy that might have considered himself a little grown up playing. He'd recently attained a rank of war with his local Cub Scout group, and as far as scouts go, they don't really come around with Michael, who wore his uniform just about everywhere he went. And so it was this afternoon, as he raced his bike toward the home of his best friend Stevie Branch. Stevie was a scout too, though it wasn't so much a defining trait for him as it was for Mike. That would more so be the mischievous grin beneath the head of spotted blonde hair that his mother Pam would often say meant him the dead ringer for Bart Simpson. Michael pulled up to Stevie's house a little after 3, and soon poor Pam was getting 2 ears full in a way only a mother with the unenviable task of trying to set rules for 8-year-olds can know. Michael and Stevie wanted to go out riding their bikes, naturally, but Pam had to set off for her work as a waitress at a local joint called Catfish Island at 5, and wanted her boy home, fed, and ready to wind down for the evening before she departed. A situation she found hard to picture if he were to be placed under the care of Mr. Moore. No offense intended, of course. But after a barrage of pleasers and sacred oaths of Scouts honor, Pam relented, and both parties reached a compromise. home by 4:30, or 2 weeks grounded. She probably knew in the back of her mind as she was making that deal that she may as well have bypassed the test and gone straight to the punishment phase for how likely it was that Michael and Stevie would hold up their end of the bargain on this. But sometimes a mom just doesn't have any nose left in her. They were out the door not long past 3:20. And while Pam maybe should have known better, on the bright side she didn't have any way of boys to keep an eye on. Until all of a sudden, she did. After Stevie and Michael's departure, Pam barely had time to blink twice before Christopher Byers was standing on her front porch at about 3:30, looking for none other than Stevie and Michael. Christopher was a more recent addition to the gang and was often referred to by the nickname Worm, which might sound a little cruel, but it wasn't for nothing. He had ADHD, and a seemingly hard case of it too. Even when taking his prescribed Ritalin, Christopher had a real hard time staying still, often squirming around in his chair during classes, hence the nickname. But none of that stopped Chris from making friends, and his reaction on being informed by Pam of Michael and Stevie's recent departure sort of shows you why. He asked if he could hang out and watch a screening of Muppet Babies that he could spot Pam's 4-year-old daughter Amanda viewing in the den. Why not? Yeah, what?
Muppet
So Christopher
Babies,
sat,
what?
wriggled, and enjoyed the program without incident before heading off to find a new adventure at about 4 p.m. It was that sort of innocent, go-with-the-flow disposition that made Christopher Byers very easy to like, though it would also get him into trouble sometimes, and today would be such an occasion. Sometime around 5:30, he was spotted by his stepfather, John Mark Byers, lying flat on his skateboard, rolling down the street a few doors down from home. Not exactly a high crime, but Christopher had apparently been under strict instruction to come home straight after school and wait for either John Mark or his 13-year-old half-brother Ryan to arrive before he was to even think about venturing out. John Mark was what Will just called old-fashioned, so Christopher's disobedience earned him a few licks with a belt on his behind as soon as the two arrived home. It was a disciplinary action that John Mark will go on to say he's wished to take back a million times. After the spanking, Christopher was told to clean up the carport to complete his punishment, while John Mark went to pick up Robbie. The last time Christopher's mother Melissa saw him from the window of their home, he was dutifully undertaking this task at around 5:45 p.m. It couldn't have been too long past that point, though, that Christopher decided good enough was good enough, because at about 6 p.m., Michael Moore's mother Dana, who lived directly across from the Byers residence, remembers seeing Christopher, Michael, and Stevie all heading up North 14th Street together in the direction of a wooded area known as Robin Hood Hills. Michael was on his bike, Stevie had Christopher on his, and any hidings with 4:30 p.m. curfews were now all but distant memory. Shortly after 6:30 p.m., a 20-year-old man named Brian Woody, who had just finished up work at a nearby car stereo shop, said he spotted the boys as he was driving home, approaching the point where 14th Street meets Goodman Avenue. He made note of them because they had Bart Simpson here of Stevie's caught his eye, reminding him of his own little boy. And it was past that point that suddenly, people stopped seeing Michael, Christopher, and Stevie. For the next half hour or so, that wasn't really a problem. It very seldom is. Kids stay out past curfew all over the world, every single day. An hour passes. Well, now you're starting to feel concerned. But don't get carried away. The little scamps probably just lost track of time. Every second after that reassuring voice in your head starts to fade further and further into the distance.
Waiting until it's time again. He's away from the but he can still.
We don't know where. We don't even get pizza delivery out here. This is my Instacart story. I run a 20-acre donkey farm. Between homeschooling,
we've claimed the lead, widened the gap.
At 8 p.m., John Mark Byers called the police. When they arrived at the Byers residence about 10 minutes later, Dana Moore's own escalating panic was further validated. As for Stevie's mother Pam, at this point she would have been mentally gearing up to issue a hard 2 weeks grounding with no ifs, buts, or maybes. By By the time she was dropped off for work at 5, the sun was still up.
Stupid.
Stevie was probably 10 minutes away from returning hometown to her stepfather, Terry Hobbs. Like a lot of people, the specific movements of Terry Hobbs in and around these hours aren't easy to nail down with certainty, but it is well attested to that he had come through the neighborhood looking for Stevie after dropping Pam off until past 5, and participated in what were called the preliminary search efforts a few hours later. As the hour approached 9 p.m., it was time for him to pick Pam up. When he did, shortly after 9, and told her Stevie had not come home, the first words out of her mouth, "He's dead." To this day, Kang hasn't forgiven Terry for waiting until that moment to inform him of her son's disappearance. There had still been no sign of the boys by the following morning. The wooded area of Robin Hood Hills that they had last been seen headed towards had been scoured by officials and volunteers alike, yet seemingly held clues. Complete and catastrophically changed in the early afternoon when a juvenile probation officer named Steve Jones stumbled upon a small, laceless black tennis shoe floating on the water of the creek that ran through the woods. Additional officers were then promptly called to the scene, and before long, Detective Sergeant Mike Allen was down in the water, waiting to board that tennis shoe, when suddenly his foot got caught on. Now the last thing in the world you'll ever want your foot to get caught on.
What?
You know what Chris said?
Chris Snowart?
He said, "You're not doing what you come here. You're not okay with it. What is it, Chris? What do you care?"
Yes.
When he came,
Bless you.
smoke out here. Now look at this. This is for you, Chris. And he said, "Oh, I just wondered because,
You never see me smoke out there.
watch this. Well, he knows nobody smokes but you. Copy the smoke, get you." And then he said, "You know, sorry, Bobby." So he said, I said, "What?" He said, "Oh, I just want to know because you always have a nice meat on you." I said, "Well, I feel like the meat."
Yeah.
Boy, you go to his apartment, it smells nasty.
I bet it's gonna smell like kitties.
Yeah, and he got cheese a little right in the hallway.
You need to put it in the bathroom.
Oh,
Stink.
Dislodged from the muddy bottom, the
Yeah.
lifeless body of
Yeah.
Michael floated to the surface. It was the break in the case that everyone had been praying would never come. The bodies of Christopher Byers and Stevie Branch would be recovered further downstream very soon after. The boys had been stripped naked, and their wrists and ankles bound in a peculiar hog tie, left to left, right to right, while a number of their injuries will be discussed in some detail later on when they become
What?
relevant as evidence, all to say for the time being.
Wait, what'd you say?
is that they were shocking.
What'd you say? Oh, you got cough. Okay. Because I got this on and I got that on. I have trouble hearing. Okay, I don't know. I don't know what to say. And my hearing's bad.
If ever a police
Okay, it's an issue. I'm trying to hear what you're saying.
Every year, thousands of homicide cases go unsolved in the United States, and the consensus among the townspeople, let alone the families of the children,
Yeah.
was very clear. This could not be one. Fortunately, whoever had been responsible for the slaughter had left very little of themselves behind. Couple such lack of evidence with immense public pressure.
Why are
even
you
the
so
occasional hideous
You don't
talk
understand
from unknown
this.
bulls.
You know?
And it's safe to say
Not a
it was a
very
very stressful time to be any sort of police officer in
difficult
Crittenden
one.
County. Soon investigators were growing desperate. You sort of need to be to enlist the help of Vicky Hutchison. Vicky had first come to the attention of police the very same day the boys had been discovered, after she was reported by the truck stop she was employed at. Partly a ringing endorsement for a new recruit, but this is just background. Vicky was clearly tapped for last-minute daycare options because she brought her own 8-year-olds and hurried along to her interrogation over the alleged fraud, which very quickly sidetracked the matter at hand. Aaron said that he had been a friend of Michael and Christopher, which was true, and that he would often play with them in Robin Hood, which was also true, and that they had a clubhouse there in which they would sometimes hide and spy on a group of men having sex with each other. Holy shit, right?
This looks impossible.
Right. The thing is, they had a clubhouse there in which they would sometimes hide and spy on a group of men having sex with each other. Holy shit, right? The thing is, Clint's stories would only get wilder from there. He spoke of the men wearing paint, speaking Spanish, and singing about the devil. Eventually, he would claim to have been present during the actual crime, saying that he was attacked and tied up himself, but managed to escape. A story that was not just fanciful, but impossible, given he could be reliably placed elsewhere at the time. Chalk it up to a mix of imagination, trauma, and egging on by overly eager investigators yearning for a big break in the case. But the short version of the Aaron Hutchinson saga is that while his series of police interviews didn't ultimately yield anything useful, the police interest in him did serve to bring his mother further into the fold of the investigation. And soon, she was offering to play detective. The police had developed a theory that there may have been an occult aspect to the crime, devil worship in crimes. This was based on things such as the strange blinding of the children, the overkill nature of their injuries, and rumors throughout the town of strange happenings going on in the woods. Make of that what you will, but the notion of such motives had caused several investigators to turn their attention to one Damien Eccles. 18-year-old Damien was known to walk around town dressed in all black and made no secret of his interest in the occult. Occult practices, whether they manifest as rituals and beliefs that fall under no particular realm, or a more formalized New Age religion such as Wicca, mean many things to many people. Some may view the occult as sinister and frightening, others dark and mysterious, or perhaps just pretentious and stupid. In West Memphis, Arkansas, they were nothing if not outsider. And Vicky Hutchison thought that she might have an in with its most notable teenage practitioner. She had me with an associate of Damien's named Jesse Miskelly Jr. The 17-year-old Jesse was a neighbor of Vicky's at the Highland Trailer Park. He was also dumb, like real dumb, with a reported IQ score of 72. It has been said by some standards he would qualify as borderline retarded. So the 30-year-old Vicky Hutchison approached Jesse and told him she'd really like to be introduced to his hot 18-year-old proto-goth friend. He didn't really ask any questions and set about organizing a meet, which wound up taking place in Vicky's trailer home around mid to late May. Using a police officer's library card, Vicky had taken out several books on Wicca and other occult literature, placed them out where Damien could see them, and soon related to him a growing interest in witchcraft and the like.
If that is not the witchcraft, then please tell me cherry fire.
Not much came of that meeting, but Vicky's report of what transpired the following evening is as sensational as it is unsubstantiated. She claimed that Damien picked her up in a red escort and took her and Jesse to what was called in the S-Beds, a fairly natural term for the evening healing rituals which aren't inherently sinister. But from what Vicky described, this was one of the creepy variety.
Occult.
The S-Bed took place in some woods about 12 miles out of town.
Hostile UAV established
They were
above. Hostile care package
over
above.
the age of 18. Their faces were painted black, and soon they began disrobing and touching each other, at which point Vicky, quite understandably, told Damien that she would like to leave. Damien agreed, leaving Jesse in the previous bat. Vicky's story was unsettling enough, but did little if anything to implicate Damien Eccles in the triple homicide. It did, however, serve to bolster police interest in Jesse Miskelly. If this slow fellow was close enough with Damien to accompany him to S-Beds, what sort of information might he be privy to should Damien be
Enemy
connected to
care
the
package
crime?
detected
So on
overhead.
the morning of June 3rd, they paid Jesse a visit at the Highland Trailer Park. With Miskelly being a minor at the time, his father, known as Big Jesse, had to provide permission for him to be taken in for questioning. which he readily did, given he had no reason to suspect little Jesse had any involvement in the murders. If anything, he was hopeful that if his son did have any useful information, it may result in him laying claim to a $35,000 reward. But when little Jesse did arrive at the station, he was not met with promises of riches, but rather pointed questions that even a young man of Jesse's limited intellect could discern made him a person of interest in the case. Jesse was firm that he had no involvement in the murders, or any satanic orgies in the woods for that matter, and soon his assertions were put to the test of a polygraph. This channel has repeatedly made clear its position that the polygraph is nothing more than an interrogation probe, a tool of intimidation to make suspects feel like they've been put in a corner. And what transpired that day couldn't serve as a better case study to this effect. Upon reviewing Jesse's results, Detective Bill Durham exclaimed to his colleagues that the boy was, quote, lying his ass off. That claim has been the subject of much debate over the years, but how the charge truly looked, or whether the investigators actually had confidence in their validity, doesn't really matter. What does matter is that the exercise had its intended effect of making little Jesse feel like he was big in trouble. And soon he was telling a very different story about his activities on May the 3rd. Inspector Gary Gitchell and Detective Brian Rick.
This is getting hard. I'm gonna need some extra
The
lines.
market does not forgive
You know, like the market
incompetence.
back for that? Wait.
Someone's been meeting their protein goals.
Wednesday, early in the morning. You received a phone call, is it correct? Who made that phone call?
Just Mom.
Miss Kelly's implication of Jason Baldwin was somewhat out of left field. The 16-year-old lived in Lake Shortland Park, across from Jesse, and he had been briefly looked at by police before this point. But that was more or less because he was known to be best friends with Damien Eccles. He himself was never at the top of anyone's suspect list before the interrogation of Jesse Miss Kelly.
What did he talk about?
He told me he had to go to West Memphis, so him and Damien went, and then I went with him.
Now, were you in a car? Whose car were you on?
We walked.
Your walk?
Right, we walked. And
Where did you go?
we went up to the Robin Hood.
What occurred while you were there?
I saw Damien hit this one boy real bad.
You've got in front of you a picture that was taken out of the newspaper, I believe. It's got 3 boys. And these are the 3 boys that were killed on that day in Robin Hood Woods. Which one of those 3 boys is it you say Damien hit? The third picture, which will be...
I like, honestly, I like his version better.
the first boy.
That's who you're pointing at.
If you read the caption,
Yeah.
the Grizzlies from that 8-year-old Michael Moore, Stevie Brant, and Grizzly from She saw Damien strike his fingers in the head. What did he hit him with?
He hit him with fist and bruised him all up real bad. And Steve Brant, I started doing the same
That's a
thing.
compliment if he wants to sing your song.
When did they take
Yep. Yeah. See, he's loving it.
Then they tied him.
Eliminate all threats.
She couldn't stay for long. You saw somebody with a knife. Who had a knife? Would you see him cut, or who did you see him cut?
Little boys.
Where did he cut him?
He was cutting me in my face.
Hostile UAV established above.
Alright. Another boy was cut, I understand. Where was he cut at?
You talking about bottom? Do you mean right here? In his groin area? Okay. Which boy was that?
Hostile care package
You're
above.
talking about the Myers boy again? Okay.
Had Damien seen these boys before?
Got a feeling. You're not. Why? Tell me everything. If you were there the whole time, then tell us you were there the whole time. Don't leave anything out.
I was there until they tied him up. And then that's when I left and they tied him up, popped me up.
But you saw him cutting on the board.
I saw him cutting on it. And then
What else left is there after that?
they laid the knife down beside him, and I saw him turn them up, and then that's when I laid.
Did you see any of the boys actually killed?
Yes.
Which one did you see killed?
That third.
You're pointing to the Byers boy again?
Was he actually killed?
They choked him through that body.
What was he choking him with?
Like a stick, and holding over to them.
When they killed the boys, you decided to go. You went home. How long after you got home before you received a phone call? 30 minutes? An hour? So they were there for a lot longer.
They in the background saying, we done it, what we gonna do. I said, what about somebody's house?
In the West End, police had a suspect that would become known to the world as the West Memphis Three. Soon their images would be beamed into living rooms across the country, and they were quite the sight to behold. The small, solemn Decimus Kelly, whose 5'1" stature was dwarfed by every law enforcement officer that supported him to and from court appearances. The defiant, stumbling Damien Eccles, whose dark, innocent demeanor made him a sort of positive force in troubling every parent tells their kid to stay away from. 16, full of fun. Himself a sort of composite of all those kids being told to stay away from that troubling boy in school, all standing accused of one of the most grisly crimes in their field. It all certainly made great fodder for reporters at the time, and cultures, where no subject can be overly sensationalized.
Did the devil make them do it? We're examining a brutal triple homicide. 3 8-year-olds had the death done in West Memphis.
And no question to the steward.
I feel that your son may have been involved in the satanic cult itself, because now kids are very impressionable, and you never know.
These kids are 8 years old. There's not a child.
In 93 especially, the alleged occult aspect made the case absolutely irresistible for immediate grips of satanic damage.
Adding to the parents' horrors were reports that the killers had participated in devil worship. In June of last year, 1993, the Memphis Commercial Appeal reported that child experts had warned West Memphis officials back in 1992 that satanic cult activities were present in the community.
Well, I want to point out that this kind of stuff is available. You can go to warehouses. There are occult warehouses in the country where you can buy this kind of stuff.
See these skulls? Tentacle movies.
Spooky stuff. But while the rest of the world was getting their understandably right up, some behind the scenes were beginning to wonder if something had not gone terribly, terribly wrong in this investigation. One of them was a man named Dan Stidham, an attorney brought on to present Jesse Miss Kelly's defense. Jesse would wind up recanting his confession.
Well, they just kept on bagging it on. They said something they're just gonna get along. Yeah, chase him and everything. Run back.
No big deal. It wouldn't be the first time Herb spilled the beans thinking there was no way out, or trying to rebottle them, deciding they might have an angle after all. Stidham went into the case thinking that his job would probably be convincing Jesse to formally roll as accomplices in court, in the hope of negotiating some kind of plea deal. Upon actually meeting Jesse and reviewing the contents of his confession, Dan Stidham began to see some problems. And truth be told, he didn't have to look all that hard.
This game was really simple. You can pass the first level just by drawing a few random strokes. But in the later levels, no matter how you take the line, the dog will get stung by the bees. If you don't believe me, come and give it a try.
I have them.
And about what time was it that this was taking place? About noon? Okay. Was it after school? They let out? One of these other boys
Hey, did you say the boys skipped school that day? Did you the boys did? You
Going somewhere. Like I said, Jamie and them left before I did. I took my mate there.
The boys certainly hadn't skipped school that day, and their murders obviously hadn't taken place around noon. Those facts were clearly not lost to the investigators.
what time did you get there?
I got there by 9.
In the morning? Okay, it's in the morning. What time is it right now?
Enemy UAV detected.
Do you know where to watch?
What's that?
Your time period might not be exactly right what you're saying. It's like early in the day, but you don't know exactly what time. So I've got some real confusion with the times you're telling me. But
But rather than continuing to try to clear that confusion up, they decided to just press forward. It seemed to be sort of an approach of, tell us what works and we'll just clear the rest up later, which is exactly what they wound up doing. And a judge told police he would need the, quote, obvious discrepancy in time cleared up before issuing urgent search and arrest warrants for the three. Gitchell got Miss Kelly on tape again, and now, all of a sudden, he had things happening right when they needed to.
And you three were in the woods, and then the little boys come up. About what time was it?
Still a smidge too early, actually. Let's try that again.
Like you told me earlier, 7 or 8 or which time was it?
There we go. Notice Gitchell is the first to actually say the correct answer too. In fact, there seemed to be a tendency where the more open the question was, the more liable Miss Kelly was to get details wrong.
And what did they use to cut them up? A rope. What color was the rope?
There was no rope. The boys had been bound with their own shoelaces. But why would anyone, no matter their level of intelligence, falsely implicate themselves in such a serious crime? That's a question Dan Stidham sought to answer with 2 experts he had taken